Back in the summer of 2023, I was working as a night shift security guard at a self-storage facility just outside of Austin, Texas. I know what you're thinking, security guard at a storage place sounds like the most boring job imaginable, and you'd be right for the most part, but the pay was decent. I could study for my online classes during downtime, and honestly, I'm kind of a night owl anyway, so the schedule worked for me. The facility was massive, probably around 400 units spread across 3 floors. It was one of those climate-controlled places that stay open 24/7, so people could access their units whenever they wanted. My job was basically to monitor the security cameras, do hourly walkthroughs of each floor, and make sure no one was doing anything sketchy. In the 6 months I'd been working there, the most exciting thing that had happened was catching a teenager trying to hotbox his unit. The facility had a pretty standard layout. The ground floor was mostly vehicle storage and larger units. The second and third floors were smaller units, the kind people rent to store old furniture, holiday decorations, or boxes of stuff they can't let go of but don't actually need. Each floor had long hallways with units on both sides, fluorescent lights that hummed constantly, and this distinct smell of cardboard and dust that never quite went away. I should mention that the night shift was just me. During the day, there were 2 or 3 people working the front desk and handling rentals. But from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I was completely alone. That didn't bother me at first. If anything, I appreciated the solitude. Things started getting weird in early July. It was a Wednesday night. I remember because Wednesdays were always dead. I was sitting at the front desk around 1 a.m., working on an essay that was due the next day, when I heard something through the security monitor. It was faint, but it sounded like someone talking, not yelling or anything alarming, just a normal conversation volume, like 2 people having a discussion. I pulled up the camera feeds on my computer and started cycling through them. The cameras covered every hallway and the main entrance, but there were no audio feeds, so I couldn't actually hear what was being said. I went through every single camera angle twice and didn't see anyone. All the hallways were empty. The timestamp on each feed confirmed they were live. I figured maybe the sound was coming from outside or from one of the units. The walls between units aren't exactly soundproof, so if someone was inside their unit organizing or whatever, I might be able to hear muffled voices. I made a mental note to check it out during my next walkthrough and went back to my essay. About 20 minutes later, I heard it again. This time it was clearer. It sounded like a woman's voice, and she was laughing. Not a creepy horror movie laugh, just a normal, casual laugh like someone had told a joke. I immediately checked the cameras again. Still nothing. No one in any of the hallways. No cars in the parking lot besides mine. At this point, I was starting to feel uneasy, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the sound was carrying through the vents. Maybe someone was in their unit with the door cracked open. I decided to do an early walkthrough just to put my mind at ease. I grabbed my flashlight and keys and started on the ground floor. Everything looked normal. All the unit doors were closed and locked. I moved to the second floor, walking slowly and listening for any sound. The fluorescent lights flickered occasionally, which they always did, but now it felt more noticeable. Halfway down the second floor hallway, I stopped. I could have sworn I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. The hallway was empty. I stood there for a solid 30 seconds, not moving, just listening. Nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid and kept walking. When I got to the third floor, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Unit 347, which was about 3/4 of the way down the hall, had its door slightly ajar. Just a crack, maybe an inch or 2, but it was definitely open. That wasn't supposed to happen. Every unit had a rolling door that locked automatically when you pulled it down. The only way it could be open was if someone had unlocked it and deliberately left it that way. I approached the unit slowly, my hand instinctively going to the radio on my belt, even though there was no one to call. When I got close enough, I used my flashlight to peer inside through the crack. The unit was almost completely empty. There was a single folding chair in the center of the space, and on the chair was a small portable radio. It was off. I pulled the door open wider and stepped inside. The unit was maybe 10 by 10 feet, just big enough for the chair and not much else. I checked the corners with my flashlight. There was nothing else there. No boxes, no personal items, nothing. Just the chair and the radio. I picked up the radio and turned it over in my hands. It was one of those old-school models with an extendable antenna and a dial for tuning stations. There was a thin layer of dust on it, like it had been sitting there for a while. I pressed the power button, but nothing happened. The batteries were dead. I put the radio back on the chair and stepped out of the unit. I pulled the door down and made sure it locked properly. As I was walking back toward the stairwell, I heard the woman's voice again. This time it was louder and it was coming from behind me, from the direction of Unit 347. I stopped in my tracks. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I slowly turned around and looked down the hallway. Unit 347's door was open again. Not just cracked this time, fully open, rolled all the way up. I didn't go back to check. I just turned around and walked quickly toward the stairs. I wasn't running, not yet, but I was moving fast. As I reached the stairwell door, I heard another sound. It was the distinct metallic rattle of a storage unit door being pulled up. Then another, and another. I pushed through the stairwell door and started descending the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached the ground floor, I went straight to the security desk and pulled up the third-floor camera feed. My hands were shaking as I clicked through the angles. Every single unit door on the 3rd floor was open. Not just a few, all of them. And in the middle of the hallway, barely visible in the dim lighting, was a figure. It looked like a woman based on the silhouette, but the camera quality wasn't good enough to make out any details. She was just standing there completely still, facing the camera. I stared at the screen, unable to move. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds, the figure started walking, slowly, toward the stairwell, toward me. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I grabbed my keys and my phone and ran out the front entrance. I got in my car, locked the doors, and sat there trying to catch my breath. I called my manager, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. It was almost 2 a.m., so I wasn't surprised, but I didn't know what else to do. I sat in my car for maybe 20 minutes, watching the front entrance. The lights inside the building were still on, and from where I was parked, I could see through the glass doors into the lobby. Everything looked normal. No movement. No figure walking through the hallways. Eventually, I convinced myself that I had overreacted. Maybe there was a malfunction with the doors. Maybe the woman I saw on the camera was someone who had legitimate access to their unit, and I just didn't recognize them. I felt stupid sitting in my car like a scared kid, so I decided to go back inside. I walked through the front entrance and went straight to the security desk. The camera feeds were still up on the monitor. I pulled up the 3rd-floor hallway. All the unit doors were closed. Every single one. I sat down in the chair and just stared at the screen. I rewound the footage to a few minutes earlier, to when I had run out of the building. I watched myself disappear through the stairwell door. Then I watched the 3rd-floor feed. The doors were already closed. They had been closed the entire time. I don't know what I saw that night. I don't know if the cameras glitched, if I hallucinated the whole thing, or if something else was going on. What I do know is that when I checked the access logs the next morning, Unit 347 hadn't been opened in over 3 months, and according to the rental records, it had been empty for the past year. I quit 2 weeks later. I told my manager it was because of school, which wasn't entirely a lie. I did need to focus on my classes, but the real reason was that I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong with that building. I still think about that night sometimes, about the chair, the radio, the woman's voice, and I wonder if she's still there. If you love the video, like and subscribe for more content. Thank you.